And thanks for joining us here on the set of Harvest. When Gerald Duran was told that successful people could not get into heaven, he concluded that the gospel was bad news for him. Today, the author is a Christian and the CEO of a string of faith-based business ventures. So take that. Welcome back to the Harvest Show. So you gave the enemy a black eye, you became a believer,
right.
And God led you down a path that would lead to you owning your own faith-based businesses. Kind of take us back to what started all of this for you.
Well, you know, I came to understand that God had a plan and purpose for my life. And to me, success is identifying and fulfilling God's plan and purpose, which I think for most of us is a series of seasons and kingdom assignments. And so to me, that's what success is. Nothing more, nothing less.
Mm-hmm.
And but I loved it. And so what's happened is God has showed me how to build businesses, and we invest in companies, we turn around companies, and so I've just had an incredible journey.
And that's your journey. To be successful doesn't mean you've got to be a CEO, or you've got to be in the
right.
business or enterprising, the world of enterprise. I mean,
right.
You grew up as a boy. You said yesterday when we had the great time together that you know, all the guys were out there playing with Hot Wheels and G.I. Joe, and you were, you know, playing The Apprentice on the desk in the room in the house, you know?
You know, it's so ironic because when God calls you to do something, it doesn't matter if society thinks you're qualified. Now, I'm a guy, I'm 56 years old. I've never gone to college a day in my life. Mm-hmm. But guess what I specialize in turning around? Colleges.
That's funny.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
That really is something. You know, I've heard different preachers say, you know, you only see my glory, you don't know my backstory, and you have a backstory.
Yeah.
So let's put this into context, because sometimes I think we look at people and we say, wow, they are successful, and we don't know what happened in the dark times. So you had a son to die at 10 years old.
Yep.
Your wife got breast cancer.
Yep.
And then another son was diagnosed with a disease that a third of the people in the world die from.
Yeah.
That sounds more like a Job story instead of a success story.
You know, 10 years ago, after an incredible season of everything we touched as a family turned to gold. I mean, we just couldn't do any wrong, and God was just blessing us and blessing us and blessing us. And I thought that's how life was going to be forever. I mean, we had challenges and all that, but it started with my son Alec, who was born with Down syndrome and heart problems. And at the time, when he was 10 years old, he was healthy, and one day he got sick, and a week later, we're staring at him, and after an hour of trying to revive him, he's dead.
Oh my gosh.
And so this season was slowly and then suddenly, and I would say over a period of about a year or two, I mean, we went from that death, we went, you know, my wife went through breast cancer, my other son Brandon getting something called SMA, which kills about a third of the people that have it, and my wife's healthy as can be, and my son Brandon's as healthy as can be, and then so we had all this health stuff. Then I had two companies, one that I had just bought, and we went into a season where everything we tried, everything we did failed, and we lost both companies. We were at the peak of, you know, living in $1 million neighborhood. You know, we were great savers, we were investors, but when God takes you into a desert season, you cannot insulate yourself. You're going in. Whether it's due to your own fault or just something God's going to take you into.
And you were down to your last $9.
We got down to $9. And, you know, about 2 weeks ago, I went and I found the journal that I was writing into, and you know, we're down to $9, and we didn't know where food was going to come from. I mean, that's how bad it was. And, you know, thank God for people that write books and that tell about these desert seasons. And when I understood what a desert season does, and, you know, one of the things is I've always had a destiny. So when it's kind of like we're on a journey, we have a destiny, like we're going on vacation to a destination, and we got a flat tire in the desert. We weren't about to build our house there, but we were going to pitch a tent. What was interesting is we met desert dwellers. A lot of these desert dwellers had never had a vision or seen what's outside you know, so this is poverty that we were in. And it changed, you know, we've always been generous givers, but what we gained through the desert season was a great empathy. And part of my thinking during that time was I stopped thinking big for a while, and I got down to just like, let's just survive. And that bothered me so much from somebody who's used to being a thriver. And so when we got out, and I made a promise to God, Lord, I know you're going to get us out of this thing because nothing can stop your plan and purpose for our life. And you didn't build me to be in this desert season. But we're going to take as many people from this desert as we can get, and we're breaking them out with us. And when we get further down the road and we get the financial resources again, we're taking 1,000 buses and we're going back to that desert and we're getting them out of there. And so since that time, and it was just like a light switch went off. The day we got out of the desert season, I got a call from a past client who says, Gerald, our company's in trouble. They had no idea I was down to $9. And within one day, we had so much extra cash, we didn't know what to do with it.
Wow.
It was an amazing thing when God snaps his finger and says, you're out, you're out. But there was a moment to get out when I had to start speaking to mountains in a way that I had never spoken before, and doing battle.
And it's like you needed that street credibility to talk about what you have written about in your project, His Plan, My Plan, Roadmap to Your Purpose, and you're helping desert dwellers and naysayers to come up out of the pit of poverty thinking or just fulfilling their purpose. You're trying to point them in that direction.
Yeah, no one wants to listen to the guy that everything's worked out. Nobody wants to listen to that guy. Because if you've just got out of prison, but God has a plan and purpose for your life, and you get activated into that purpose, that person, when they see somebody else that didn't go to college or hasn't, and gone through a tough time, it motivates them. And they're not bound by their circumstances. And one of the things that God showed me is that my future, where I'm going, isn't determined by my present circumstances. It's determined by God's plan and purpose for my life, by the size of my dreams and by my perception of what's possible. And one of my first mentors says, Gerald, you'll make your first million in your head before you ever make it in the bank account. And we had that thinking in the desert. I mean, I'd never want to go, I tell people I tried broke. It sucks. I'm never going back. But it does give you that credibility, because now people go, you know what? Now you know where I'm at.
So for someone today, Gerald, who's stuck, because that's what you're dealing with and talking about is getting unstuck. What are some of the first steps to making that change on the inside that leads to a change on the outside?
I think there's 3 revelations that I had that just totally changed my life. It's interesting. Most believers believe that God has a plan and purpose for their life. Yet when I go speak and I do or if I look at any of the national stats, 70–80% can't tell you what it is. So it's kind of odd that God has this plan, purpose for each one of us, but nobody can tell you what it is. So the first thing is just to understand what God has a plan and purpose for my life. That's the first thing. And it's to prosper. It's not to fail. He didn't create losers. The second thing is he's bound by his word to tell us what it is. Now, maybe not the way that we want, we're on a need-to-know basis. That's the way I've always looked at it. But the third thing, and this is powerful, there is no person, there is no circumstance, there is nothing that can stop God's plan except us if we decide not to participate in it. Those 3 things kept me strong and my family strong in our desert season.
Gerald, before I let you go, tell us quickly about your 2018 campaign to activate pastors and congregants and business people around the country to pursue that purpose. Tell us about that.
Well, in Milwaukee, we have something called CANA MKE, and it's an entrepreneurial accelerator. And so it's ministry in the marketplace. So we bring all these people in that are looking for success, and they get the gospel. They don't even know they've been to church, but they're in church. So we're creating a tour across 15 cities across America. We're working with pastors right now, and we're planning these CANAs. So this tour, we're going to go activate people into their purpose. So we're not only going to see people get saved, we're going to see them into their purpose. And I really believe that we're going into this harvest season, and I really believe the church is going to be changed from a movement of people that have childlike faith. And when they read something in the Word, they believe it, unlike so many that live in silos and in a lot of our religious cultures that, you know, they've reduced down what God will do to us to nothing.
Wow, thank you so much.
My
I'm
pleasure.
going to say amen to that. I feel like I've been to church and didn't even realize it. Those are very powerful principles. To connect with Gerald, go to geraldduran.com or go to harvest-tv.com for a link to his project called His Plan, My Plan. We'll be right back with Brian Bush.